I can tell this is going to be I'm kind of glad this is going to be a side topic of the conversation with Sam, Dave, Jason, Chris, back with you. Because this is probably the thing that frustrated me most about the De'Aaron Fox whole thing. It's not the Fox thing itself. That's a sidebar, but I'm looking at this would be a great way to intro Sam, but I want to have this conversation with him publicly. Now, granted, the vast majority are very positive, but Death916 in our chat says, ask Sam why he hates Sacramento. That article was anti-Sac. And Kenneth Kelly says, I understand why you have him on. He's a big reporter, but I'm so over this topic and all the digging into how incompetent our team is. I'll be back in 30 minutes. And I'm like, I want to be careful with what I say here because I know it's going to be quoted. If your attitude is plug your ears and tune it out because it's negative or you feel some sort of way about it, then that portion of the fan base deserves any losing we have in the future. And that's like such a terrible thing for me to say, but you deserve it. Like you're just walking into it. If you think that it's drama or Real Housewives, I mean, you're kind of right. But if it's something that affects the inner working of the franchise and is going to prevent the franchise or help prevent the franchise, which already has enough hurdles in being successful in the future, and you just don't want to hear it because you're just tired of the negative, that's the ultimate melty snowflake. Like, stop. You need to hear this. You need to be educated, and you need to know what the hell you're talking about. So I see this, and again, we're talking like 10%.
Right.
Well, I don't want to make it out to be like it's this big uprising. But I guess that first off, I'm very fond of Sam, and he's a real friend. But that aside, if Sam sucked, I'd be like, okay, well, he sucks. It's not that. It's just I get really we are lucky enough, and I'm not just saying this because he's on hold. I'll tell Sam he sucks if I think so. But we're lucky enough to have a guy, a national reporter who is connected throughout the NBA. He's literally a top 4 NBA reporter in the entire league, entire sport. We're lucky enough not only to have him on every week, but also for him to, what I think is turn a kind eye, to the Sacramento Kings and give us insight we're not going to get. And that's no offense to any local media. We don't have the access Sam does across the board. So the fact that he's reporting it and some of our Kings fans push back on it destroys me as I take up all of his time introducing him. Good morning, Sam. Hi, Sam. What an intro. How are you?
Good morning, Dave. A lot to unpack there. 3 minutes and 13 seconds. What an intro.
You counted. I'm standing I'm standing in front of oncoming traffic for you, and you had to count me down like the Oscars. You know what, fans? Screw Sam. Have at it. Get them comments right now.
Man, you blew through the music, blew through the commercial break. Yeah. My God.
Well, I mean, come on. How do you
appreciate you, buddy? I don't need you fighting my battles. It's okay.
It's our battle. It's mine too because I'm with you.
No, you're right.
It's
I mean, it's.
Go ahead.
Here's where I land. Is I heard you break it all down. For one, I hope you're wrong about 10%. That might be. Maybe you're seeing the comments. I'm not. Yeah. I mean, we are human nature-wise guilty of, and I'm as bad as anybody. If you get 98 compliments and 2 criticisms, your brain focuses on the criticism. So that's part of it. But what I also I think had crystallized while kind of listening to the way you see it is that I have to imagine that at least part of this is, parts of the fan base who have been through it for so long now and who had so much fun during the Beam Team stretch and really this team currently that has provided some positive, happy moments. The level of hope that these elements are ever going to change is probably nearly non-existent, if that makes sense. So what I'm hearing is like, it's funny, like as a quick aside, this relates. I went to the game the other night against the Knicks, and I had a family friend who was there with a friend of his. And the reason I bring this up is wonderful guy named John, older guy, season ticket holder.
Not drunk neighbor, John?
No, different
okay.
John.
All right.
And talking to him about the team, I just realized how present he was, meaning like he's a hardcore Kings fan who puts his money on the team, his hard-earned money, And he knew the stuff that I'd written and talked about behind the scenes, yet his only focus was, how Levine was playing with DeRozan and how Doug Christie was coaching. And it was so present that it made me kind of realize that sometimes you and I and people like us in the media, we do underestimate the degree to which, like, the bandwidth that people have for this type of stuff. Like I think a lot of people, it's just pretty cut and dry. Like, is the team entertaining me? Yes. Awesome. I love them. Are they not on the court entertaining me? No, then I'm upset. To get in, to go behind the scenes like we do and understand the way they're functioning, I don't blame people for just kind of saying, I'm over it. I hope it works out. I just want to be happy about my team.
Yeah. So Sam, I'm thinking about the piece. Obviously, it was after we talked to you on Thursday. I think that came out on Friday, the day of the Fox's return. And less about the fans, though we don't. I don't want to minimize their opinions on this, but I'm. You write a piece like that, you're going to get pushback, feedback, applause, whatever it might be, from those in the inner circles that you're kind of writing about. I'd be curious what you heard from some, or what was some of the reaction you got from those in the organization.
That's what did. After the story was out, I'm trying to make sure in my head that this is accurate. I actually think it was completely non-existent from the higher ups in terms of reaction. Plenty of reaction within the organization, just people who work for the team. And if I'm being honest, a sense in some circles of appreciation that Dave, like you kind of talk about, that there's, spotlight tends to kind of change the way people move a little bit. And a hope, in some circles that a story like that could have that effect. So, that was kind of it. I mean, I think part of that is because on the front end, you have they knew the story was coming. They knew, in kind of general terms, the nature of what was coming and had a chance to weigh in. Do I think some people with the Kings, probably think it was tilted too much in De'Aaron's favor in terms of telling the story? Probably, but the truth is the Kings have also chosen, and you can credit them for this. I mean, there's stuff that went on that I think, would swing some of it the other way, that they chose not to share. They are aware that their reputation in the player community is not in a great place again because of this situation. And I think, wisely decided, like, whatever dirt existed, because there's always dirt on both sides, they chose not to dish it. So, I mean, that's kind of the framing of it, but yeah, I mean, no fireworks on the back end of it, Jay.
So you risk alienating the franchise, including ownership. You live in Elk Grove. You're going to piss off a decent portion of the Kings fan base. Is that in your head when you're writing it?
I mean, not to sound corny, but not really, because I don't know. I mean, I guess I will be corny, man, because I grew up professionally at the B and take a lot of pride in the people who, because it was an old school environment. And I know this is a way bigger picture answer than you anticipated, but like, I was lucky enough to physically live in so to speak, live in a newsroom when I was a junior in college, and look around the room at the Mark Kreidlers and the late Marty McNeils and the Aileen Boissins and Jim Van Vliet and all these different people. My point is, these are journalists who kind of showed yes, we're playing in the sandbox. It's just sports, but the least you can do is just reflect what's actually going on, because you have access that other people don't have. And if you're just going to, wave your baton and be a fanboy, then you can get in the stands. And that's just not what the job is. So that part of my career has always been honestly pretty easy, because I just kind of got shaped a certain way. So I mean, that stuff, the collateral damage, or I don't know what the inverse of that is, just the praise locally on stories that are happier. It's appreciated for sure and whatever, but it's not what the job is.
Is this the kind of like, for you personally, do you like What do you prefer to write about, Sam? Like, free agency or like this kind of behind the scenes stuff that you're getting from a lot of different sources. What's like a preferred top article you would rather put out there?
I mean, this bleeds into the last question, Jay. I mean, what you're hinting at is like, obviously I'm human. Like, I don't mind sharing. Like when I walked in the gym after the day the story, came out, and, you kind of make a point to be there in person just in case anybody's upset. Like I literally told somebody, I think it was Deuce and Mo actually, that it was like, man, there's just this like a little bit of an exhaustion and a negativity that comes with that. And I think admittedly it was getting to me that day a little bit, only because it is Groundhog Day when it comes to, some of the themes in that story. So, I mean, this actually kind of goes against my answer to your other question, but like as a member of the community and a person who has kids and a family who has gleaned joy from the Kings when things, when their Beam Team year was happening, I would constantly be getting texts from neighbors like, hey, are you at the game? They're on the road. Why don't you come over and watch? Everybody's happy. You know what I mean? So that element makes stories like this not as fun when it's not going as well. As much as I do enjoy getting behind the scenes, it's kind of a mixed reaction. What I enjoy, it's probably a longer conversation, but I always love it when people are willing to share, kind of their story or their truth that they hadn't previously shared with you, interview leading to story, leading to kind of revelations and insight that not only tells you more about that person, but maybe even helps somebody else. I mean, I'm rambling as I try to crystallize the answer here. One example that I'll give you that's much more inspiring King story is over the summer writing about David Blatt, the former Cavs coach who was battling MS and who was working with Team Canada and kind of his incredible fighting spirit as he tried to help the Canadian national team and really hold on to his favorite, one of his favorite parts of his life, which is the game. And, stuff like that certainly is more uplifting and fulfilling than a story like this.
We'll move on to the X's and O's here, because we don't want to spend the whole interview on the postmortem. But I guess what I've, just having the conversation in our hometown, I guess the thing I've struggled with the most, and maybe I just need to give more grace and understand that just because I think this way doesn't mean, Fred has to think this way. But I think through the whole process, watching that article come out, and you mentioned it before, we're in a sandbox. We understand it's sports and not real life, and let's let that hang for a second. But imagine if somebody was like, "Hey, Woodward Bernstein, yeah, he did burglarize, the whole Watergate Hotel and all that, but this is going to cause a lot of problems for America. And do you hate America? Why do you write about this?" Like, to me, sports investigative journalism is almost, and I mean this with respect, it's like an oxymoron. It's like, okay, it's sports, who cares? But people care, and billions of dollars get spent, and people want to spend their hard-earned money. And when there are things that aren't great and fun and exciting to, as you said, Sam, sunlight's the best disinfectant, and you get in there and you do that, I guess I just for the life of me can't understand. I can't understand why that's met with negative comments. I also can't understand why in the middle of that whole diatribe of a question I just had, we lost Sam, but we did. I saw it on the phone.
Oh,
I think he hung up. You think he was just tired of talking about it?
I know he's going to transition to video.
Oh, is he?
But I don't think that's happened
yet. I didn't think he was just going to hang up. Did you notice at the beginning of that whole thing when he talked about when he got to the gym? At first, I think he meant when he got to the practice facility.
Yeah, exactly.
At first, I thought it was him saying
a flex on a flex, a real flex.
Literally flex and say, "There's Sam right there." Sam, I don't know where I lost you in that whole.
I got all of it. I was here.
Okay.
I hit the button. I was backstage. But
I got you.
How long was that question, Sam?
Yeah.
2 minutes and
you guys shut up. I'm gonna write an article about you. But Sam, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand the blowback when it's like it's a service. It's a service to the fan base, and that's how I see it. It is a service to the fan base and not an easy one to provide. And still there's some that are like, I don't want to hear it.
No, that's fair. I mean, the Kings are not alone. I had a guy ask me locally the other day, how many, and really kind of in defense of the Ron Adive ownership tenure, how many organizations do you truly think are run well? And so the premise was, are you making too big a deal out of stuff that is an element everywhere? And I obviously can't, kind of authoritatively give an answer on that, but it kind of like you just laid out, that's just not the way I think, which is, first of all, I think, they are certainly among the worst historically. Secondly, like, think if you're a Knicks fan, right? And it's a good example. It's higher profile than the Kings. They've got their own dysfunction, but like, Knicks fans, I think, go through a similar battle where they just want to do the Spike Lee thing and root for their Knicks, but they have an owner in James Dolan, who is disastrous in a lot of ways. But do you really truly not want to know anything about the guy running the team or the people that he empowers or the people he's listening to? And, maybe the answer for some people is no.
Sure.
And you just kind of, it's sports and you want to roll the dice and hope that the roster one of these years is good enough that it doesn't really matter what's above the locker room, so to speak. They're going to provide some good times. I think it's just partly a personality thing. And again, I go back to that word bandwidth, man. Like, people, like, sports is an escape. And if you are invested in a team, like so many Kings fans are, I really don't judge anybody for being frustrated, because you're trying to invest your time for a positive feedback, not,
right,
something else that stresses you out or frustrates you.
Yeah, and maybe on that thought of like Knicks fan, or the correlation might just be as simple as, if your team's winning, it kind of may not matter what the internal, like, Lakers and Phil Jackson and Shaq and Kobe pretty famously weren't all, jiving, but if they're winning titles, who cares?
To that point, Jay, here's another example I've thought about recently. Because, we got to be honest, there is something very accurate about the fact that, like, when the team is winning, we in the media, for one, we spend less time digging on how things are operating. We just focus on what's happening most of the time. Secondly, even if you know stuff, you have to read the room. Like, if during Beam Team era, we found some stuff that was kind of wild, at some point you're going to just look like you're trying to crash a party.
Right.
And so it affects the way you cover things. So the Lakers come to mind, right? Like a couple of years back, fans in Laker Nation were excited because they got LeBron, they got AD, and they got former MVP Russell Westbrook, right? And some people thought it would work, and it wasn't working. And Darvin Ham was the coach, and it was going downhill. And I remember that I wrote, and again, I obviously spend a fair amount of time trying to report on things like, okay, who is the owner listening to? So Jeannie Buss, I had discovered, was still in pretty frequent contact with Phil Jackson. First of all, her longtime fiance and longtime legendary coach of the Lakers, but not officially a Lakers employee. So what we learned was that Phil was actually a really big fan of Russell Westbrook's, had a lot, held him in really high regard, and that perspective was impacting the way Jeannie saw the situation with Russ at the time. Now, I only bring this up because when I wrote that, Lakers fans were furious. Like, why the hell is she still listening to old Phil? And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I get it. And I get that he's not officially a Lakers person anymore, but my God, it is Phil Jackson. We don't need to act like she's listening to the guy at the mini mart. Now, that compared to the possibility of Anjali Ranadive and Jeremy Lamb having some voice or influence on the Kings, similar type stuff, received differently, because at that time, Laker fans just, they were already pissed off at their team. It only made it worse. I think this Kings fan base right now is just trying to spin things in a positive direction.
Sam Amick joining us. And I guess last thing on that is, like, to be fair, you just got done mentioning Jeannie Buss. Not to get too personal with Vivek, but I believe one son, at least last I checked, is serving in the military, or at least was. Other one is, I think, an investor, entrepreneur, and very successful in his own right. And he has his daughter. And when you look at, Stephen Jones of the Cowboys, Jeannie Buss of the Lakers, on and on and on, I guess it just does bear the question that if you wanted to kind of flip the whole thing and go, okay, well, here's another angle. 68-year-old or 70-year-old, however old Vivek is, owner, is bringing his kid up the ropes to learn about how a team is run so that she can eventually take over majority ownership and run the team. Well, I mean, is that really that out of the ordinary?
Not in a vacuum, no.
I'm trying here, Sam.
Yeah, as you know, I'm not going anywhere from there, brother.
Sure,
I mean, it's yeah. I mean, no. If all things being equal, the answer to your question is no. That's not
right.
The question then becomes, okay, what? I'm not even touching that.
I understand. I got you. Hey, Kings Warriors tonight, Jason.
Yes, and Sam, kind of to your point, you've been at the last couple games, and we've seen. I don't know if it's completely up and down for the Kings, but kind of when they lose, they had the heartbreaker the other day, then the complete dismantling by the Knicks. But then there's been pockets here where they've looked pretty good. It's a little bit of a hard team to read. Conversely, the Warriors couldn't be much hotter. But just, I guess, back to the Kings, Sam, just the little bit of the up and down nature of what this team is. Maybe that's who they are, but just kind of your opinion on what you're seeing from Sacramento right now the last week or so.
Real quick along those lines, what's the Domas status that I should know, but I don't?
He practiced yesterday, but it's not been 100% certain that he's playing. But that's a good sign.
Here, I'll give you. Zach LaVine spoke on it after the game. Here, after
practice. Shoot, he was out there doing his playing against a guy, so his hamstring must be feeling better. But I told him just don't rush it. You don't want that thing to linger, especially not the time of year we are at now. So, whatever time he needs to come back, but he looks pretty good.
I don't know, game time decision.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's been nice and to try to add some positivity to the Kings front office to, picking up Jonas Valanciunas at the deadline was a lifesaver when it comes to this particular season. He's been good in that fill-in role. They function differently. They obviously are a wing heavy, ISO heavy offense and one that when Domas does come back, and that's kind of why my mind went to him first. I think it's been pretty apparent how much, he's had to adjust to a new system with this version of the roster and with Doug Christie's system. Domas is a guy that flourished as much as I think he and Mike Brown battled quite a bit. And I think, at the end we're kind of not in a great place. I think that he's aware that the way he was handled offensively aided him. And I think the comfort level hadn't been there before his injury. I'm curious to see how he plays when he gets back. Beyond that, they're just one of those teams in the West that's trying to scratch and claw and get in there and outlast the Phoenix Suns. The Warriors it's crazy. I mean, they're 10-0 in games with Jimmy Butler since he came. So they have yet to lose with him on the court. So it's a pretty tough out tonight for the Kings.
I guess we said no more article, but that is something we haven't talked about. On a scale of 1 being no big deal and 10 being DEFCON, well, whatever the bad DEFCON is, I think it's 1. How worried should Kings fans be, in your opinion, on the idea of Domantas Sabonis wanting a check-in on the future direction of the franchise or whatever he said? How worrisome should that be for Kings fans?
I mean, before I answer, it's, we just spent a half an hour where the takeaway was stop telling Kings fans bad things. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Okay. Well, we'll wait and see.
Mean, 5 or 6. I don't know. Okay. I think that here's the thing, and this is where I'm going to sound defensive, and it's fine. But like the stuff that people are mad about me sharing, it's like, you can get mad all you want. This is literally significant factors. These are significant factors in why De'Aaron Fox pushed his way out of town. And more importantly for the future, they are significant aspects of the current calculus of important players on the team right now, including Domas. I think he's at the top of that list. And I think, he would like clarity on the team's process, influencers, decision makers, who is running things, where is this going, what is the vision. So I mean, I'll put it at a 6, and then
Well,
again.
And just to wrap up the interview here, isn't that really ultimately, I think, where the disconnect lies? Like, so many are focused on Fox. Did he push his way out? Did he not? Did he handcuff the team? Was he forced out? Is it really just about process? It's about Mike Brown and the airport and what led up to De'Aaron Fox and Domas now and DeMar DeRozan going, well, I don't have that many years left, and all these little things we hear about behind the scenes. Screw Fox, he's gone. Whatever, he's a Spur now. We're all on the same page there. Isn't it really just about, guys? If you don't, it's like going to the doctor when you're a full-time smoker, and they're like, hey, I think we need to do a lung X-ray. And you're like, I just don't want to know. I just don't want to know. Well, it might be bad news, but might be bad news if you get it early enough. It could fix something. I know I'm using a crazy analogy right there, but as with any bad news, sometimes you find it out, Sam, and it can kind of help prevent that stuff from the future.
Yeah, I mean, one example that comes to mind, like when the Clippers said goodbye to Paul George, Norm Powell at Media Day said that it was an addition by subtraction, and he was excited because it meant opportunity for other players, right? So there's this clean cut with the player, and the guys who remained, or at least that particular guy, basically said, hey, let's go. We don't need you, buddy. This is different. This is some of the current players who remain actually privately kind of saying, well, did De'Aaron have a point? And might I need to also ask similar questions before, deciding what I think of this group? So yeah, I mean, I agree, but thankfully, I'm not living in your comment section or mine too often. Every once in a while, I clap back a couple times on this latest story, but it is what it is.
Keep doing what you're doing, Sam. We appreciate it, and you can check out The Athletic. Get yourself a subscription like I do, or have 2 of them, and check out some of the best journalism in a world where we lack a lot of journalism from Sam Amick, Matt Barrows, and so many others. Sam, appreciate you, and we'll talk to you in a week, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Be good.
Thank you. Take care. Way late for a break. Good conversation with Sam. You can pick that up on YouTube, whether now or later, shortly after the program, as you can with any of our other interviews on any of the other shows. We'll take a break. When we come back, more sound from Kings practice yesterday as they prepare for Golden State. We'll get to that next.